Picking the right music is just part of a music supervisor's job. Securing the rights to the music or sound effects is another really important function. Licensing represents about half of the job responsibility of a music supervisor. So understanding the licensing process and types of licenses is very important. On most projects, the music supervisor is responsible for coordinating all of those permissions. In some cases, such as a television network, they have a rights and clearances department that gets all of the permissions for stock footage, for music, and so forth. But in that case, the music supervisor still needs to do the cue sheets. If something is not properly cleared, then the project is liable for damages to the composer, the songwriter, the publisher, and the record label. That could cost a fortune in legal fees and re-editing, as well as damages that might be awarded in court. Here's a record with 5 songs. So how many copyrights are there? That's kind of a trick question. There's the record, which is the recorded version of 5 songs. So there's actually 6 copyrights. The record business is built around the recording of those songs. The publishing business is built around the songs themselves. So the publisher functions as the administrator. They take care of registering the copyright, issuing licenses, collecting the money, and then paying the songwriters. They have what are called song pluggers that are people there who are trying to get the song recorded on people's albums or used in commercials, TV shows, etc. They also have a creative staff that's similar to A&R at a record label that is looking for talented songwriters. They work with them to improve the songs, help them find co-writers, and so forth. So every song is made up of 2 equal shares. The writer's share, so they own half of the copyright, and then the publisher owns the other half of the copyright, called the publisher's share. So for each song, there might be multiple writers. Maybe you have somebody who wrote the music and somebody who wrote the lyrics. It's possible that they each have their own separate publishing companies, in which case you have what's called a co-publishing deal. In this case, we'll say they're both signed with the same publisher, Warner Chappell, okay? So the publisher, so they assign the copyright to the publisher. The publisher's job then is to issue licenses for print licenses, mechanical licenses, public performance, which is actually handled by the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC, on behalf of the publisher and songwriter, as well as synchronization licenses and transcription licenses. In exchange, the publisher keeps half of the money that they make, the publisher's share, and the other half would be split between the 2 co-writers. Mechanical licenses, as you know, give you the right to record a song. So that would be doing a cover of someone's song on an album. Public performance gives you the right to perform it publicly. That you get from the PROs. Similar to that are what are called grand rights. That's when they perform the song dramatically, like in a show, a Broadway show. There was All Shook Up Elvis, there was Jersey Boys, there's the Cirque du Soleil Beatles show, things like that. And those are handled by the publisher, not the PROs. Print licenses would be printing sheet music, songbooks. Synchronization, when you're combining it with visual images. So here's a chart available on FSO for you to download. And it lists the type of license and its purpose and who you get it from and what the fee would be. Okay, so for a mechanical license, again, that's the right to record a song. So if you wanted to do a cover of a Beatles song, you need a mechanical license. That you get from the publisher. The fee is set by law. Okay, for a song under 5 minutes, it's currently 9.1 cents. For a synchronization license, that's the right to combine the song with visual images. That you get from the publisher, and that price is negotiable. For a print license, that's when you wanted to do print the song in musical notation form. You get that from the publisher, and again, the price is negotiable. Then there's public performance, the public performance blanket license that you get from each of the PROs, and that's the right to perform the song in public, whether it's a concert, a nightclub, radio, etc. Those are handled by the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC on behalf of the publisher and songwriter. So the fee is set by the PRO, basically kind of according to how many people are listening, okay? The master license is the right to use the master recording. So if you wanted to use the original artist's recording of a song, then you would contact the record company, and that would be a negotiable price. At the bottom, you'll see it says who gets the money. So all the money that the publisher collects, they split 50-50 with the songwriter. All of the money that the record company collects for that master license would be split according to what the record contract states. And for the PRO, all the money that they collect, they split it again evenly between the publisher and the songwriter, and they deduct a small fee of about 5% for their services. As you know, in the US, we have the compulsory mechanical license. Once a song is out there, distributed, then anybody can record it. They just have to pay the appropriate fee. This only applies in the US. So for mechanical licenses, the writer has the right to control the first recording. Doesn't matter if you made a profit or if it's a demo or whatever. Thereafter, once it's released to the public in any form, anybody can record it. They just have to get the mechanical license and then pay the appropriate royalties. Public performance licenses are issued by the PROs, ASCAP, BMI, and SESAC in the US. The only people who are exempt from public performance fees are theatrical exhibition of films in the US. So if your song is in a movie, then you don't collect for that public performance in the theater. Once it's on television or elsewhere, then you can collect public performance fees, but not that initial theatrical exhibition. However, for foreign exhibition, the artist, the songwriter does collect a fee, a percentage of the box office or per ticket sold. So these public performance blanket licenses are issued to venues, clubs, restaurants, etc. As I said, basically the fees based on crowd capacity. For radio stations, what they do is they have certain designated stations in each genre who have to create weekly playlists and submit them to the PROs. Based on those, that's how they determine what other radio stations would be playing and how much fees are to be paid. For film and television, the producers must provide cue sheets to the PROs of all the songs in the product so that they can determine how much the fees would be. So each songwriter must affiliate with a PRO. They can only belong to one at a time. Same thing, publisher also affiliates with a PRO. So then their job, whether it's ASCAP or whoever, is to pay the songwriter and the publisher directly for any fees they collect for public performance. For print licenses, this would include sheet music, songbooks, etc. For example, Hal Leonard is a very popular publisher of sheet music and songbooks. If we wanted to do a Bob Marley songbook with 10 songs, we would go to the publisher and we'd say, we want these 10 songs, and we would negotiate a license anywhere from 3 to 5 years. We'd pay a royalty for each songbook sold. After that license expires, we'd have to go back and renegotiate. For synchronization licenses, this is movies, TVs, shows, commercials, video games, any kind of multimedia with visuals. Here you get this from the publisher. The fee is based on essentially how it's used, what the territory is. Do you need US rights, worldwide rights? How long do you need the license for? Is it 1 year or is it in perpetuity? How is it being distributed? Is it broadcast? Is it going to be DVD copies? If so, how many? All of those factors play into the fees. If you wanted to use the original artist, the recorded version, then you need a master license. Those sound recordings, as I said, are owned by the record company, okay? You can identify that by looking at the P, okay, on the label, and that's who you would contact to obtain the license, okay? So music clearance is obtaining approval from the entity that has the authority to grant permission. That's the licensor. And they're granting permission to use their work to a third party. That's a licensee. So that would be the company that you work for. If you've never licensed music before, you might be surprised at how expensive it can be. The licensing firms use different price structures based on how you're using the music, okay? You have to submit a written request, a description of the selection, the song, the publisher, the songwriters, etc., how you propose to use it, the visuals, all of the relevant information. If they're not familiar with your company, if you're not a kind of a known entity like Disney or something like that, then you need to give them some background information, some bio info on your key management and so forth. And then you make them an offer according to the terms that you have. Most record companies take into account the budget of the project, the cast, if it's got big stars, big directors, and so forth, then it's going to be more expensive, okay? That amount is typically more than what kind of a typical indie budget can afford. Music is always very effective, especially in advertisements and other types of entertainment. So people generally want popular music by major artists. But for most projects, it's not really affordable. Commercials can usually afford to buy those, but again, most smaller budget projects, it's really not very affordable. So in that case, tracks from indie musicians and labels are much cheaper and often as good a quality, okay? Finding new and undiscovered composers and musicians is a really good way to go. And it can be nice because it's a fresh sound. Just doesn't have as many, connotations as older songs and so forth. So these artists are, again, eager for exposure. They tend to be more flexible in price and so forth and more cooperative because they realize the right track can really create a buzz for their artist, their label, and their production. The hard part for the music supervisor's position, of course, is that there's a lot of music out there. So kind of sifting through thousands of songs and identifying what's appropriate is kind of the problem. For public performance of masters, okay, for things that are like internet radio, things like that, as you know, those things are handled by Sound Exchange instead of the PROs, okay? So they collect fees for that digital performance.